Hey there, you're listening to the Not So Breakfast Show with Sasha and Ish. All right, welcome to the Not So Breakfast Show today, the podcast for leadership and career development. And the topic this week is, what do you do when you've got nothing else to give? When you're out of energy, you're out of ideas, and you just need to stop. Plus, we tackle the big topics.
And being a woman of a certain age, that has attendant challenges that come with it. Sometimes the sneeze comes before I forget to, suck my internal cucumber in, or whatever it is that we do these days.
We've also got a number of life hacks at the end of this episode, and, well, this is why we edit.
I said like 3 things at the start. One was about, I wish I'd written them down.
All right, that's the show. Let's get it.
I'm going to sneeze, so we're not going to be able to stop it.
Let's get that out of our system.
Oh, no, it'll happen throughout. We'll just have to deal with it.
All right, welcome to Not So Breakfast Show today. This is the one about what to do when you can't do anymore, when you're at the end of yourself, when it feels like you can't take on anymore, do anymore, cope with anymore. We are going to talk about that because that seems like a good topic to talk about. And to help me, as always, Sasha, beaming in from somewhere in the country.
Yes, I'm at home today, which is great. And I am so richly blessed to have a big garden, big lawn, lots of grass and lots of grass seeds and lots of grass pollen and lots of hay fever. So I'm probably going to sneeze. I apologize in advance. Just be thankful this is not a live show. The only thing getting wet is my microphone, not you in the audience, which is great.
That's good. The occasional spray on the camera doesn't matter.
Does not matter. And I love that we're talking about what to do when you simply cannot do anymore. You've had enough. Because I got to about 3:25 today and I have not stopped sneezing since this morning. And being a woman of a certain age, that has attendant challenges that come with it. Sometimes the sneeze comes before I forget to, suck my internal cucumber in, or whatever it is that we do these days. So it's been a day and my eyes are watering there. And I was just so close to going, I can't do it. I can't record today. And that made me think, that's not true. That's not a true thought. It's not a helpful thought. Even though I'm experiencing it, I actually can do today. And yeah, I'm really interested to have this discussion about what you can do, because we're not all about going push, push, push. I mean, sometimes we are. But it's about identifying when is the right time to push and keep going and bust through, and when is the time to be really cognizant and listen to your body and listen to your feelings and say, now I stop. And then the third situation is that time is where you go, I need to change something so I'm not in this situation repeatedly where I get to the end of myself. But just for right now, I can do one more step. I can do one more repetition. I can do one more 5-minute block of work, and then I'll rest.
Yeah, and a lot of this comes down to sometimes our perception of what we've been through before, right? So if we've been through some hard stuff, other hard stuff seems to be more achievable. If we've been through moments where we've had to do a lot of things and really push ourselves to that, what feels like that point where it's like it's going to be too much, it stretches you a little bit more. Like I remember the first mortgage that Joe and I ever took on when we got our first house. I think it was like $135,000. And I remember saying to one of my clients, oh man, because it felt really heavy. We had this mortgage, and I said, man, I just feel like this mortgage is sitting over us and we haven't had one before. And they were like, how much is it? And we went, 135,000. They were like, oh, okay, you'll be okay. And just the perception, just kind of going, look, in the reality of things, like it feels hard right now. But probably in 10, 15 years from now, you'll look back and go, I wish I had $135,000 mortgage, right? But your ability to cope with the heavier debt sometimes comes from your ability to cope with the smaller stuff. And really that's what develops us as humans and really develops our coping mechanisms.
I think it's important that we're that we be really careful that what we don't end up doing is kind of prioritizing trauma, where we go, all these bad things have happened to you, so great, that means you can cope with more. When sometimes the reverse is true. When you've been in really dangerous or challenging situations, you have a stress response, which means you are not the right person to respond in a crisis, and you need to have the boundaries that keep yourself safe. But when you look at this idea about saying, what do you do when you just can't do anything else? What are some of the things that you do when you get to the end of yourself or the end of your tether? Like, how do you manage yourself with that?
Yeah, like the first thing that jumps to mind is I tend to do like a good old-fashioned mind map. Like, I just feel better seeing it all actually on a page. So I'll just sit there and usually it starts with drawing a circle and like putting me or you or whoever I'm referring to myself that day, and then
Ish in the middle of the page. In the
middle of the page where I should be. And then like a little line, it'll say, this project and this thing and this person and all of the stuff that's in my brain, and just mapping it out so that I can see it. And then from that map, then going in and kind of going, okay, so what are the actual priorities that I should be concentrating on? What's taking up the majority of my time? And the biggest question is, where is the majority of the stress coming from? And I've often found that 80% of my stress usually comes from 20% of my week. And when you can identify what that 20% is, it's really interesting how either easy that is to either shut it down or put it in perspective to everything else that's going on.
That's interesting. So you kind of you are bringing it down to its appropriate size.
Yeah.
I'm laughing because I do a similar thing where when I'm just getting overwhelmed, I feel like I can't do anything more, and I actually stop being productive because there's so much to do. I just flap. I'm not getting anything meaningful done. So today, in the midst of all my hay fever, I went back through my diary to see what's left undone, and I'm going to get a master list. And that's going to help me with the sense that I'm just chasing all the time. I'm chasing things to do. And on my list from July, I've got this note and it says, get a gift basket for Pip.
Okay.
And I'm going, oh, that's great. Pip needs a gift basket. And then I spent like 15 minutes going, Pip. I don't know any Pips. Who the hell is Pip? And one of the ways I know I'm in overwhelm is when my brain doesn't work properly. And it took me 15 minutes to think about, why don't I just search Pip in my inbox? So I searched Pip and up it came, and I'm like, oh, Pip, yes. I should definitely get Pip a gift box. So I've carried that over. But I like what you're saying, which is list it all out, mind map it, see what needs to be done, and the realization that sometimes the things that are taking us to the end are not actually the big things, but they can be little things that we can deal with and just knock on the head, get out of the way early, and get on with it. One of the things that I like to do when I get to the end, and I think this is critical, and it's a new skill and I'm still just developing it, is actually having the recognition to know that you're approaching the end of yourself. And just the self-awareness to say, oh my goodness, I'm tired. This means I'm not going to be operating at my best. So what are my risks? My risks are I'm going to snap at people I love. Put a pause in so that you don't do that. When I'm under at the end like this, one of the risks is I just don't check my work carefully enough. So actually just don't send any emails today. Or if you get them drafted or get someone to proof them, or just put some little rescue remedy type systems in place that help you when you come to the end of yourself. Just recognize that you're there so that you don't do more damage because you're like, I said those things, I shouldn't have said them, and now I'm going to have to spend an hour repairing that relationship. So anything you can do to recognize when you're coming to the end and just put some little pauses in or put some strategies in play to help you overcome the inevitable outcome of that terrible behavior that's about to come, that's going to help you.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes it's harder to see it in ourselves, right? At those triggers, but other people do see it in us. And so often it might actually be having a great friendship or relationship where someone, you can just say to them, can you flag for me when you see these these things. Like we did a Hogan test with our SLT, and it's basically, I guess, personality profiling on steroids, right? You go through, you fill out like 200 questions, you sit down with a clinical psychologist at the end, and they tell you whether you're a psycho or not. But really what they're trying to bring out is, what is your stresses? How does that manifest itself? When did those things come to the fore, and how are you going to cope with them? But also, how are other people going to see those? So we know within our team that there are certain people that will flag earlier than others. And there are some people that's resilience is really high when it comes to stress levels. But then when they finally flag, well, it's way too late. Like they're literally flagging as the bus is hitting them. We needed it to flag while the bus was heading towards the person 20 meters away. So even having that awareness is quite good. But I know for myself, if I want to start working on my own a lot more than normal, if I'm not sleeping, if I'm not eating right, those are three that just trigger. And I need to be aware of those, because that's where I'm starting to flag.
Yeah. Interesting. What about, if I think of exercise as an example, because I'm a natural mover. So I love dancing and stretching and moving all the time. I'm a dynamic, so that sounds like I'm talking about my dynamic personality. I'm not. I mean that I exist in time and space. I'm not a very still person. Even when I'm being still, I like to be moving. But I'm not like one of those natural gym bunnies that goes, oh, yes, let's do 25 reps of that boring shit-ass exercise. So one of the tricks for me is I give up too soon. And so I go, oh, I can't possibly do one more. And so I do all these mental tricks where I go, okay, so the weights that have to be lifted now, it's a car that you have to lift off someone. So I put myself in these situations where inevitably I'm the hero, and if only I could do this thing, here's what's going to happen. Like, could you do one more rep for $1 million? So I play kind of all these mind games with myself just to see where the limits are. And I think to your point earlier, once you've pushed hard once, you know you're capable of that. And so Olympic athletes who are doing incredible workloads physically with their bodies, they say that the very best ones are the ones who have an incredibly high tolerance for pain, and they trust that their body won't break down. So they reach that pain point and they just keep going. And look, that's not for everybody. There's a reason that only one person every 4 years can be the Olympic athlete. But it gives you an insight into how they train. They have to put themselves under that sort of intensity and keep going. So any of those little tricks that you can do for yourself, I think those are really helpful.
Yeah, well, even like the way they train SAS soldiers and special forces units, is a lot of them actually die more in training than they do in combat, and it's because the training is so extreme
fair enough.
Yeah, to make the reality of the combat achievable. Because otherwise, if you haven't trained for something, how do you prepare for that? I heard an interview. I think we may have even talked about this in the podcast before, but it was an interview with a Green Beret or it's SAS or something, and they were saying the most dangerous version of one of those soldiers is when they're just on autopilot, when they're completely worn down and they're just so tired they just go into stress response autopilot. He said that's the most dangerous time, because they're just on muscle memory, and that's why sometimes when they're under that much pressure they tend to survive and can fight their way out.
Yeah.
I heard a great statement the other day, and it said, "What you resist persists."
Oh, yes.
And I've been thinking about that a lot. I'm thinking, what is it that I'm resisting changing in my behavior or in my work style, and as a result that just keeps coming up all the time? And it can be a little bit around that overwhelm, like when you feel that you're at the end of yourself. I often find that when you readjust or rethink the way that you're doing it, suddenly you create a whole lot more space that wasn't there before, or you find efficiency, because through sometimes that either when we stop resisting and we go, okay, this is what it is, it's now going to happen. How do I make this serve me or work for me? And what do I need to adjust in order to make this smoother? You kind of like find new gears. You find a different way of doing something. And then all of a sudden you might actually go, this isn't even as hard as I thought it was going to be. And now I have all this extra time, if time is the thing, or my stress levels are easier because I'm not thinking about it all the time.
Yeah, I love that idea. A couple of things come out of it for me. I really want to stress, we are not saying just be an overwhelm and keep going all the time. We're saying if you are an overwhelm, here's some things you can do to get out of the situation without just letting everybody down and quitting. That's it, I'm out. Yeah, no, it's in such that I should just stop. Project's yours. You actually have to get through and finish. So we want to help you be able to do that. But then you have to have the reflection that says, how do I not get myself into that position again? And I think that's what you're talking about when you're saying, okay, I've got to stop resisting being a bit more organized, or I've got to stop resisting saying no to people, or I've got to stop whatever it is you need to stop in order to recreate what the next few months are going to look like. That's super important.
Yeah, that Dr. Phil moment where someone's literally going, well, and how's that working out for you? Like if you just keep running that same pattern over and over, then at some point it's either going to be serving you or it's not serving you. But chances are, if you are getting any type of stress response or you're not getting the outcome that you're after, it's not serving you. So maybe the reality chat of, I could sugarcoat it, but you just eat that too. It's like, really just some of that understanding and switching on levels of awareness is part of our development.
I'm not big on promoting other people's podcasts because it's hard enough to get anybody to listen to our one. But I listened to this one on the way home from Tauranga yesterday, and it's We Can Do Hard Things. It's the Glennon Doyle and Abby Wambach and Sister Amanda. It's their podcast. There was one that had a family psychologist on it. And amazing, the advice that she was giving about when your kids are in overwhelm and when they've come to the end of themselves and they are, quote unquote, behaving badly. And it was just a fascinating insight or a way of looking at things, that rather than saying what your children need is consequences, it's saying you've got to sort out what happened before the bad behavior, because that's the bit that you want to change. You actually need to worry less about consequences and more about the antecedents, like what happens before. And that's, I think, what we're talking about today. You're in the situation where you say, I cannot do one single thing more, whatever it is. I can't listen to my kids complain one more time. I can't do one more load of washing. I cannot take on one more task. You have to deal with it in that moment. And then you go back and say, how can I fix so this doesn't happen again?
Yeah, definitely.
And you just give your children away and it helps with the washing. You find yourself in that state where you cannot do a single other thing, you're in overwhelm. One of the key things you can do to get through to the finish line is just change your state in that moment. So recognize that it's not working where you are. And if, let's say you're doing a piece of work and you've come to 10 o'clock at night and you find yourself, every word is taking a minute instead of, 100 words a minute, you just, rather than going, I give up, that's it, that's me for the night, what you're able to do is say, I can probably squeeze out half an hour and this will finish it. And then I'm going to sleep better because it's finished. But I can't just keep going right now. It's almost like the tortoise and the hare. If I just go and make myself a cup of tea or have a cold drink or do something that changes my state and changes my brain chemistry, then I'm more likely to be able to do the one more hard thing. And I think often what we do is we don't give ourselves those little mini pauses or those mini breaks that enable us to complete. And so a project ends up taking much longer than it should because we're just not giving the little breaks that we need throughout it. Does that make sense to you?
We'll be right back.
If there was one skill that could double your income, advance your career, and increase your ability to influence, it is the skill of presenting. Whether it's on stage, in the boardroom, or at a job interview, the 30-Minute Presenter program will help take you to the next level. So check out our Instagram page, click the link in the bio, and get started on the 30-Minute Presenter program. Oh yeah, definitely. I think if you're just slogging away, You know, just the way our brains are wired to focus in those smaller bursts or smaller chunks. And you need to find what your rhythm is. Like, I definitely know I get to a point where it's like, it doesn't matter if it's 30 minutes or 2 hours, there's nothing else coming out right now. But if I stop, sleep, or just come back to it the next day early, I'll probably nail it in like 10 minutes. So for me, it's that reset. It's like knowing when I'm done, because to your point before, that's where the mistakes start to happen. You know, one time I was renovating our bathroom, and it just got to the point where I was, you know the story, and I was trying to finish it, and I was like, I'm going to finish it, and I'm making more and more mistakes and everything. And then I was like, I'm just going to go get a drink. So I went downstairs to get a water, and then I came back in, and when I walked in, it's like a crime scene. There was like blood on the floor. It's up the wall. I'm like, what the heck? And I looked down, and I cut myself like 3 times and hadn't even noticed. And I flicked it everywhere. And I was like, tonight is not the night to finish it. It may finish me if I continue on. And I just stopped and went to bed. And when I woke up in the morning, I just had a completely different perspective. And yeah, I was back on top of it. But yeah, I know when I'm tired. I'm not a Navy SEAL. When I'm not going to go into that muscle memory stress response. The most dangerous person is when they're tired. I'm probably dangerous when I'm tired, because cutting myself, falling over, tripping up.
I think you're dangerous tiling any time.
Yeah.
So especially when you're tired. So if you think about the little things that you can do for the state change, you can change your body chemistry by having something to eat, having something to drink, doing some press-ups. I mean, these all sound like such stupid things, but they're actually really helpful and useful. Sometimes when I'm working at night and I'm in the office on my own at home, everyone else has gone to bed, I find that I get too hot because I've got the heater on because it's cold. And then before you know it, you've turned your little workspace into just the sauna, and you go, no wonder everything stops. So I go outside, it's cold, look at the night sky, marvel at the universe. I'm just a tiny speck through space, and I get perspective on the thing, and I come back in newly awake and go, right, 20 minutes, let's go, let's smash it out and get it done. And so I think anything you can do that just changes your state can be really helpful.
Do you ever come back in and go, I'm just a speck. This is bullshit. What am I wasting my time doing this?
100%.
Cool. All right. Well, so, you know, sometimes you will get to the end of yourself, or the end of where you think you can handle, and probably in principle you probably can handle more, but we're not saying push yourself and burn yourself out, but we are saying recognize some of those signs, and if you can't recognize them, trust someone that can recognize them in you, and then maybe pre-think about some things that you can do to either change your state, change your focus, have a new approach, think of it a different way, come at it from a different angle. All of those things actually help, because as you develop, you will find capacity if you learn efficiencies and if you learn from what's going on. And as we say over and over again, things don't happen to you, they happen for you. And if you can recognize it, it's going to make a massive difference to your development. So I've been collecting a few life hacks lately, Sash, that I think would be helpful for listeners, for yourself. They've been helpful for me. And I thought I'd share them. Does that sound like a good idea? All right. So have you heard of lefty loosey, righty tighty?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, for some reason, I'd forgotten about that. And every now and then, like, you're trying to unscrew something, but you're in a weird position, like behind, or you're trying to, I don't know, you just...
I'd forgotten what it was for. I just heard the expression.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, well, what it is, so lefty loosey means unwinding and loosening.
So anti-clockwise.
Yeah, and righty tighty is tightening it up. So it's really helpful if you're like trying to screw in something and you can't quite see the screwdriver. Lefty loosey, righty tighty. There it is.
That's not the same thing as when your water goes down the plug hole and the northern hemisphere it goes a different way to in the southern hemisphere. Is all the world the same for screwing?
Yeah. Everybody screws the same worldwide.
No! Excellent.
Okay, number 2, life hacks. If your pasta is boiling and it's starting to boil up, just throw an ice cube in it to cool the water temperature immediately.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that.
Yeah, because I've heard of the wooden spoon over the top, but that never seems to work. This always boils
No, that
over.
wouldn't do it.
No,
No.
that's cool. Do you know on your fuel gauge there's a little arrow, because even on my car, I always pull into the fuel pump on the wrong side. The little arrow's pointing to the side your fuel gauge is on.
That lets you know. And E is for enough and F is for finished.
Yep. Oh, God. That's nice. I heard this one the other day on your iPhone, so you have to have an iPhone for it, but your calculator on your iPhone, if you're typing in the numbers and you go one too many and you're like, and you clear it, and then you type it in again, you don't have to. You just swipe your finger across the screen. It takes one number off.
Oh, that's helpful. That's really helpful.
Okay, next one. This one could just change your life, Sash, because sometimes I've seen your car and I think you need this one. You know how you lose something in your car? A ring, a coin, an earring?
No.
No, never happened. Could do.
Never happened.
You get a pair of stockings, you put them over the end of the vacuum cleaner, and then you just vacuum around under the seat, and it just reveals. You could have thousands.
It's a big reveal.
Yeah.
Yes.
There could
we
be
might find my wedding ring that got stolen.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So
That's
good.
super cool. You got another one?
Oh, yeah, I got a few.
I'm going to blow your mind with science when we're finished.
Okay, cool. Another one is the arrow key on your keyboard allows you to scroll through every website. So websites now have not endless scroll, but you can scroll to the middle. You can just use the arrow key if you don't want to use your mouse.
Beautiful.
Brilliant. I've blown my mind with science.
You know how you're talking about how water goes down the plug hole?
Yeah.
But did you know that the tide doesn't really go in and out?
What?
Yeah, tides don't go in and out. So bear with me.
Okay.
Imagine that Earth is a planet.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's like a marble and it's sitting in a bowl of water.
Mm-hmm.
And all that happens is that the marble, which is the Earth, rotates around a central point, which means sometimes it's in a lot of water and sometimes it's in less water. The water doesn't move.
Oh, is that why when the moon is really big,
Yes.
it pulls it further?
The angle of rotation is different, or the axis of rotation is different, but the water actually stays in the same place, and it's the Earth that moves. Mind blowing, right? Because I sit at my
That
mum and dad's in
is
Auckland,
amazing.
and you watch the water come in and you watch the water go out. And since I discovered that fact at the grand old age of 49, I sat at their house and I was just going, it's not the water coming in, we're going towards the water. The water's been there all
Unbelievable.
along. And I'm like, it just instinctively can't be true. And maybe someone will tell me I've got it wrong, mischaracterizing the situation, but I'm pretty sure.
I'm putting money on it, Sash. As always, the chances are you were probably correct.
But I didn't know that till like 3 weeks ago.
It's brilliant. All right, let's just start spreading that one. If you listen to the show, obviously, please spread all these life hacks and this great advice that we throw out every single week. But next time anybody says, look, the tide's going out, you go, oh, please, let me tell you exactly what is happening
What's
right now.
happening here?